Curaçao, a barren strip of land in the heart of the rippling Caribbean, a place the Spanish once disdainfully turned their backs on, calling it the useless island. No gold, no silver, and not even the vast rainforests they once craved. However, the Dutch saw things differently. They recognized a strategically located deep-water port along the most important shipping lane between the Caribbean and the northern coast of South America. The 17th century dawned. Curaçao rose to become a colossal trading empire. Trade fleets sailed day and night, carrying wealth and power. But it also marked one of humanity's darkest chapters, the epicenter of the transatlantic slave trade. A tiny island, just over 400 square kilometers, 65 kilometers from Venezuela, yet it held the heartbeat of an entire era. Under the brilliant Caribbean sun, this is home to Dutch-style houses, vibrant streets, and a lifestyle still deeply rooted in the Netherlands. So what's the secret behind this unique lifestyle? The island of Curaçao lies just off the coast of Venezuela, less than 70 kilometers from the South American mainland. It's arid and windy, and its landscape is distinctly different from the rest of the Caribbean. The island's capital is Willemstad, a city bisected by the Sint Anna Bay. There, the deep blue sea meanders through the heart of the city like a man-made canal. From above, you'll see international ships docking at the island daily, gliding smoothly between rows of buildings lining the water's edge. The eastern side of the bay is the old town of Punda, notable for its narrow-fronted houses painted in vibrant pastel colors like turmeric yellow, mint green, and coral pink. These buildings stand in a straight line, their reflections shimmering on the water, creating the feeling of being in a corner of Amsterdam in the heart of the tropics. Looking to the west side, you'll find the Otrobanda district. Here, the streets are narrower and darker. Huge murals cover the weathered walls. Life here is so slow that visitors rarely linger long enough to explore. The two halves of the city are connected by the Queen Emma Floating Bridge. This unique bridge can open wide to welcome huge ships into the harbor. Whenever the bridge moves, all pedestrians must stop on the shore to wait and watch the giant ship glide past before the two halves of the city are reunited. Curaçao enjoys sunshine almost year-round. The limestone hills appear arid and desolate, covered with giant cacti and thorny bushes. You'll also see divvy trees leaning precariously to one side, a result of the relentless trade winds that have swept across the island for thousands of years. Heading northwest, you'll find Cristóbal National Park, preserving some of the most pristine natural landscapes of the entire island of Curaçao. The summit of Sint Cristóbal reaches 372 meters. From this vantage point, the entire island unfolds in two contrasting shades of green. On one side lies an endless expanse of arid land, while on the other, the crystal-clear Caribbean Sea stretches to the horizon. But the surprises don't stop there. Continuing along the northern coast, the scenery changes dramatically. In Boca National Park, powerful waves from the Atlantic Ocean continuously crash against the limestone cliffs, creating white columns of water that erupt through sea caves like Boca Tabla and Boca Pistol. This is the perfect spot to experience the devastating power of the ocean, which has silently eroded the island for millions of years. Deep beneath the limestone lies the Hato Caves. This place has been shrouded in darkness for thousands of years, filled with stalactites and colonies of fruit bats. But the greatest wonder of Curaçao is hidden underwater. Just swim a few dozen meters from the shore, and the seabed will instantly drop by more than 1,000 meters. This extreme geological fault has created a famous deep blue outline for the entire island. Surrounding the island are vibrant coral reefs. Everything in the Blue Room area is even more mysterious. Sunlight shines directly through the underwater entrance, illuminating the entire space with a magical blue light, as if a giant lamp were shining from the depths of the sea. This contrast is what defines Curaçao. On land, it's a barren and arid land. Below the surface, it hides one of the most vibrant and lively ecosystems in the Caribbean. Inside the Hato Caves, ancient murals are still preserved. These are the remnants of the Caquetio people, the first inhabitants of this island. The indigenous tribe lived here long before European ships set sail. The biggest turning point in history came with the arrival of the Europeans. The Spanish were the first to arrive, but they quickly set sail. The reason was simple. The island was completely devoid of gold, silver, and fertile land. In 1634, the Dutch East India Company saw a completely different opportunity. They began building the city of Willemstad around the Schottegat Bay area. A series of forts, harbors, and massive warehouses sprang up. In a short time, this small island transformed into one of the busiest trading centers in the entire Caribbean. But behind this, wealth lay a dark past. Curaçao was once the largest slave trading port for the Dutch East India Company. Tens of thousands of Africans were brought to this land by sea. They were then sold to other colonies throughout the Americas. You can verify this past for yourself by visiting the Cura-Hollanda Museum. The rusted iron shackles and countless old records here still tell the true story of a time when people were bought and sold like commodities. Amidst those tragic years, a figure rose to become a symbol of Curaçao. His name was Tula. In 1795, he led thousands of enslaved people in a struggle for freedom. Ultimately, this rebellion was brutally suppressed by the authorities, and Tula was executed. Yet, the yearning for freedom he instilled in the island never faded. Today, Tula's statue stands silently, facing the Caribbean Sea. The statue seems to gaze towards a distant horizon that he could never reach. Entering the 20th century, the discovery of vast oil fields in Venezuela ushered in a new era. The Royal Dutch Shell Refinery was rapidly built, transforming Curaçao into one of the largest oil refining centers in the Caribbean. This massive industry attracted tens of thousands of workers from all over the world. New communities brought with them an incredibly diverse range of languages and cultures. These continued to blend together on this island, creating the vibrant society you see today. In Curaçao, history needs no explanation. It is clearly present in every mural in Willemstad. History resonates through the sounds of papiamento on every street corner. And that history lingers in the eyes of the man standing before the Tula monument each morning, as if he were remembering a secret the outside world has never understood. Many homes in Curaçao boast extremely wide porches, large front doors, and spacious front yards open directly onto the street. This design completely blurs the lines between private and communal space. Every afternoon, you'll find people relaxing on their porches, calling neighbors over low fences. People chat freely without having to leave their homes. Further out in the suburbs and up to higher ground, you'll find quaint country houses. They stand tall with their distinctive arched roofs and expansive verandas overlooking the valley below. Just below this area lie smaller, low-lying houses constructed from palm trunks and clay. The workers of yesteryear built them not for aesthetic reasons, but simply to survive the island's harsh, dry season. Today, new residential areas have sprung up with more modern houses, but the habit of outdoor living remains deeply rooted. Everyday life spills out onto porches, front yards, and small spaces where neighbors can easily gather. It seems the people of Curaçao have never learned to confine themselves within four walls. As the eastern sky begins to brighten, wooden boats from the Venezuelan coast start arriving at the Willemstad floating market. These boats are laden with fresh bananas, mangoes, avocados, and coconuts, freshly harvested from the mainland. Within hours, these produce are neatly arranged on stalls along the harbor. Vendors call out their wares in Spanish, while buyers haggle in papiamento. Behind them, rows of buildings in the distinctive Amsterdam architectural style gradually brighten under the dazzling Caribbean sun. The intoxicating aroma of freshly baked empanadas permeates the streets. Mango, watermelon, and papaya smoothies are a popular breakfast choice for many before starting work. Students stroll to school. Office workers head to the town center. Fishermen return to shore after a fishing trip. Shopkeepers busily open their doors for business. They share a rhythm of life that is neither hurried nor stagnant. In Curaçao, locals greet each other with a very special word, dushi. It means a greeting, a thank you, or simply a warm welcome to someone passing by on the street. Whenever the Queen Emma Bridge slowly separates to allow large ships into the harbor, everyone automatically stops and waits. There are no blaring car horns. Frustration is completely absent. People simply watch in silence as the ship slowly disappears behind the bay. Then they continue their journey as if it were just another normal part of daily life. As night falls, the Trukipan food trucks begin to light up. After work, locals, families, groups of friends, and tourists alike patiently stand around these roadside stalls, waiting for their turn to be served. Laughter and chatter mingle with the aroma of grilled meat. The vibrant sounds of Caribbean music echo late into the night until the last Trukipan truck packs up. And then Willemstad sinks into absolute silence. It's a sense of peace that only a city that has just experienced a long day of intense activity can fully appreciate. For centuries, the ocean has been a vital source of livelihood for Curaçao. As the sun rises, ships line up to set sail, searching for tuna, snapper, mahi-mahi, and Caribbean lobster. By midday, the fresh seafood is available in markets, restaurants, and on the dinner table. Nearby is the bustling Willemstad harbor, a constant stream of cargo and container ships arriving and departing daily. The lives of the local people revolve entirely around the harbor, with jobs ranging from maritime transport and logistics to ship repair and various other services. Despite its small size, the island remains a vital commercial link in the Caribbean. Tourism is now Curaçao's biggest source of income. Everyone from tour guides and divers to taxi drivers, hotel staff, and cafe owners in the old town relies on this industry for their livelihood. Many families depend on the year-round influx of international tourists who come here to enjoy the turquoise waters and the unique culture and lifestyle. Besides tourism, you've surely heard of the famous blue Curaçao liqueur. Its main ingredient is the peel of the Laraja bitter orange, a specialty of the region. Once discarded on the barren hills because it was inedible, this fruit has become the soul of the renowned liqueur named after the island. Recently, local divers have begun venturing into the coral reefs to hunt lionfish. This invasive species is destroying Curaçao's marine ecosystem. Instead of being caught and discarded, the fish are transported directly to restaurant kitchens, becoming a lavish dinner for tourists on the same day. From fishing boats at dawn, barrels of Laraja oranges drying in the sun, to divers hunting lionfish at the bottom of the sea, the people of Curaçao have built sustainable livelihoods by unlocking value from things the world once overlooked. Did you know that Curaçao never tells its story in a single language? On this island, papiamento is everywhere. You'll hear it in the bustling markets, in the greetings of neighbors, in music, in schools, and in community festivals. It's actually a unique Creole language, a blend of Portuguese, Spanish, Dutch, West African languages, and a touch of indigenous heritage. Once forgotten in administrative life, papiamento transformed into a symbol of national pride after the social upheaval of 1969. That identity continues to resonate through the island's music and festivals. When Carnival arrives, the streets of Willemstad become a vibrant, ever-moving river of color. Sparkling costumes fill the streets. The tambu drums beat with powerful rhythms. The tumba rhythms draw dancers into a continuous dance. Children crowded the sidewalks to admire the scene. Adults threw open their windows to gaze down at the street. The entire city seemed to be vibrating in unison. Back at the table, this cultural blend was even more subtly revealed. The centerpiece was always the keshi yene, a rich, creamy golden cheese wrap tightly around a flavorful and incredibly delicious meat filling. Alongside it were the familiar funchi and various traditional stews. And you couldn't miss the gleaming blue Curaçao wine under the lights. Each dish carried the historical imprint of different regions of the world. However, all of it blended perfectly into a warm family meal. This chaotic yet incredibly harmonious patchwork is what defines the soul of Curaçao. It's a place where you can enjoy keshi yeni while listening to the faint sound of tambu drums, casually speak 4 languages in one afternoon, and still feel as comfortable as if you were in your own home. You're looking at Groin Nip Beach. It's as beautiful as a postcard. The turquoise waters nestle between 2 pristine white limestone cliffs. On hot summer afternoons, the beach is packed with families, surrounded by ice buckets and the boisterous laughter of children playing. They climb the low cliffs, and people line up to jump into the water. However, the name of this beach hides a heavy secret. Most of the tourists who swim here are unaware of it. Right on the plantation above this beach, There once lived a slave named Tula. He abandoned his farming tools and resolutely refused to work. Thousands of others immediately followed him. News of a revolution claiming liberation for everyone on the other side of the ocean quickly spread to this island. Therefore, they gathered to demand their own freedom. The rebellion was quickly suppressed after only a few weeks, but this island will never forget where that fire began. Look at those local children climbing the rocks. They plunge straight into the turquoise water. Some are too young to swim against the current. At first glance, you might think it's just a normal children's game. But at this particular beach, it's different. That act carries a much deeper meaning. A person throwing themselves from the cliff into the vast ocean is the truest symbol of a body completely liberated. No shackles, no walls of confinement. There is only a person falling freely into the sea. The inanimate cliffs remember nothing, but its name holds all the memories. Now let's move on to the most bustling and simple stretch of coastline, Playa Pescado. Fishermen here usually anchor their small wooden boats close to the rocks. They clean their freshly caught fish right on the flat rocks along the shore. The fish heads and guts are thrown straight into the shallow water. It wasn't just discarded waste, it was actually a valuable unspoken agreement. The leftover food quickly attracted giant wild green sea turtles. They swam past the edge of the boat, even getting close enough to touch the swimmer's legs. Some of the turtles weighed as much as an adult. They moved completely silently underwater. The turtles here had learned this habit from generations ago. Every morning they would stop by to enjoy their free meal. At this time, swimmers were floating among the turtles. The water was so clear, you could see the turtles' reflections on the sand below. Absolutely no one was feeding them. Feeding was entirely natural, a natural consequence of honest coastal work. What started as discarding leftover food had evolved into a fascinating daily encounter between the two species. Even if the catch is small today, the turtles still have their leftovers. This agreement continues regardless of the circumstances. The ocean generously provides a livelihood for the fishermen. In return, the fishermen reciprocate with respect and a willingness to share their catch. Right here on this rocky shore, humans and the ocean are together maintaining an ancient rhythm of survival, and everything is renewed every morning. Mornings in Willemstad often begin with the sight of giant cruise ships slowly docking. Thousands of passengers immediately disembark, strolling through the vibrant streets. They stop at cafes, souvenir shops, diving centers, and small restaurants in the old town. For the people of Curaçao, these are not just transient visitors. Tourists bring a wealth of job opportunities and income. They are the driving force behind the island's continued development. However, this influx also presents a formidable challenge. The historic neighborhoods must find a perfect balance between serving tourists and preserving the authentic way of life of the local people. The beaches and coral reefs provide abundant livelihoods, but they are also the most fragile ecosystems in the face of global warming. The high density of ships and human pressure directly threaten this area. Every external change strikes this small island nation with remarkable speed. A mere increase in fuel prices instantly triggers a surge in the cost of living. Even a few days' delay in imported shipments demonstrates their deep dependence on the outside world. Young people growing up here face a harsh reality. The question isn't whether Curaçao is beautiful. The question is whether that beauty is enough to hold them back when a Dutch passport opens up countless opportunities for a better life 8,000 kilometers away. Therefore, Curaçao today is far from a mere tropical paradise. The island is striving for the future but resolutely refuses to compromise its unique character. It's not just about turquoise waters and fine white sand. It's the story of survival of a land once neglected and considered worthless. Over the centuries, From a barren, resource-poor island, Curaçao has forged its own value, transforming itself into a maritime transit hub and a haven for diverse international cultures. A series of historical periods have passed, yet they have not swallowed the island's inherent identity. Instead, they have shaped Curaçao into a truly unique place. You will witness firsthand the towering Dutch architecture rising majestically on the sun-drenched Caribbean coast, where the sound of papiamento echoes through every corner, and the past continues to flow silently through daily life. When you pack your bags and leave, you will no longer worry about whether this island belongs to Europe or the Caribbean. The question that truly lingers in your mind is whether there is another place in the world that can exist so brilliantly without ever needing to define itself precisely.